Part of what I wanted to do that was a little different than what most people do on movies like this is I wanted to try to do as much practical effects as I could. The difference between practical and digital is the practical effects are things that are done actually in real life on the set that you can see when you're shooting. Digital is something that's added later by a computer. If you have an explosion going off, if you do it practically, you put dynamite in the wall and the wall blows up. To practically do it is to really do it that way. To do it digitally, you would give it to an animator who would draw it on a computer. Most people use a little bit of practical elements, but mostly they'll do most of the CG. We wanted to do practical because it's the way people used to do it, and I wanted this film to feel kind of nostalgic. It feels more real. When I watch a movie and I see stuff that's really been shot and not digital, digital stuff, if there's too much of it, starts to look like a video game to me. It removes me emotionally from those movies, and I wanted this movie to work first and foremost on a visceral, emotional level, very much like the early Amblin movies, Spielberg stuff like E.T. and Close Encounters, and think about Lucas's work in like Star Wars. And that era of the sci-fi movie is sort of what I really grew up loving, and that's something I wanted to explore with this film.
I read the script, and on paper, it looked like it was going to be a big CGI nightmare.
Favreau!
One of my first conversations with John, he's like, I'm going to do minimal CGI. It's going to be models and miniatures, and the set's going to tilt, and all this cool stuff's going to happen.
The first explosion is going to be done just by jolting, no interactive light, maybe some debris falling from the ceiling. The second one is one of the missiles, like we did into the cabinet, going through screen behind him, hitting a fireplace that we could shoot at a later time if we want to blow up the fireplace.
I think when you're forced to do something in a real way, it gets a more real effect. There's a newfound reliance upon computer graphics, and it's kind of new, and it's pretty amazing what you can do. But we all felt that at the end of the day, there's something that you don't really connect with when you're seeing it because your brain registers that it's fake. The movements don't really seem real. And with two children, you don't want to take the chance of not getting a performance, of just saying, look scared.
Have all the real stuff happen instead of them adding it in digitally. All the explosions and the debris and everything, it's really cool.
Okay, let's bring up the vibration, please.
But whenever we could, instead of shaking the camera and telling the kids to react like the house is shaking, we built a house that shook, so that the kids are really scared they're going to fall off their feet.
And
they were able to create a 9-point earthquake on one of the sets.
I thought it's going to be basically like a ride at Disney World for 3 months, and they're going to pay me instead of me paying them, so that excited me.
And then he built an enormous gimbal that we built the 2-story house on.
People don't know what a gimbal is out there. It's basically your house is on the gimbal and you can do this to the whole house, invert it to 45 degrees, back, spin it around.
When you see the gimbal, except for its size, it looks like an erector set. The hydraulics allow it to, by computer control, allow it to move in all directions at any speed that you want.
all right, here we go. Ready, and gimbal.
So that when the gravity hit, instead of throwing CG books across the room and making it look like the kids were sliding down the floor towards the window, we actually tilted the house and made everything slide.
I tell you, these Zorgons are hard on a house. In the example of the Zorgon harpoon, it would be difficult to do in the computer world because there's energy that's created by that harpoon. It would be very difficult for a person to sit down and try to predict all of those little pieces, those little elements the harpoon would give you naturally.
And all that compressed air is going to go in here, and that's what's going to shoot it forward like a bullet in a gun.
The harpoons are amazing because they shoot through the house, and it's a really amazing thing because it comes in and it spreads apart and shoots back. And it is so awesome.
So when they're reacting to this thing, you see debris and a real harpoon shaking a real wall.
3, 2, 1.
With the schedule of shooting a feature film, sometimes to pull off a big practical effect on set, you really know that you're only going to have one chance. And Jon had exactly one try to get that right.
3, 2, 1.
It's a shocking thing to see half your set go flying away.
Do we have it all now?
Can we do it again?
No, that's great. So, and also, I feel like you lit the match. I think the timing should be, hey, that's Dad's nap couch. You look up at him,
And purposely
light it, and do it.
I think my favorite sequence in Zathura is when the astronaut and the boys light Dad's sofa on fire.
You better get it out of the house!
We had to sell a burning sofa tumbling through outer space. And this is actually a good interaction with the practical effects team because we got 5 real sofas that were identical, and they were on a rotating motorized rig that Jon made.
They created this big, huge rig, metal rig that they could put it on like a big spit, and they could rotate it. They could program it for different speeds, so it would rotate at a consistent speed. And then we set up, about 40 feet of track and a camera on what we call the Genuflex, which is a motion control kind of dolly crane.
We moved the camera so that it would make it look like the sofa was moving, doing the moving instead of us. And we had a couple of practical effects guys with fans who blew the fire all around.
You don't really want to do flames in CG if you can avoid it because they always look phony. I mean, you see it in movies here and there, but generally it doesn't work. There's so many random dynamics happening that's very hard to duplicate.
Okay, and flame on! And wind on! Wind on!
Obviously there wouldn't be fire in space, but in our movie there is, so we had to figure out what maybe that would look like.
What exactly am I supposed to get out of the way of exactly? I have no idea. All it says is take evasive.
One of the things we have to do is contrive elements that are interactive with the children so that they've got something to react to.
Meteors!
To shoot the meteor shower, special effects guys had pre-cut a bunch of holes in the floor and set little charges underneath them so that little bits of debris would blow up out of them.
They're called air mortars, and they have debris like cork and balsa wood in it, and it blasts up through the floor, and it looks like something's coming down and hitting the ground. So we had to make patterns and run around and everything exploding.
The task fell to us in post-production to add believable smoke trails, flaming tips of the meteor, and then also what we found is we wanted to add more meteors in than we had done practical charges for, so we had to paint in, we paint in holes, and then we had shot debris as an element with the splinter unit during the shooting, so we had to comp that into all the holes. That all added to the realism.
In the last couple of weeks, we shot the black hole sequence, and that's really when the house gets torn to nothing.
I think we're home.
It's Jon's wall that gets ripped off practically. We pick it up in midair and it becomes a digital wall. We reveal a big swirling, fiery thing that's part Jon and part us. When the obliteration happens around the actors, that really is Jon's domain. Sometimes we would shoot the kids on green screen in the set, and then Jon would come in and work all night with his guys, and they would set up all the huge pulley systems. And Jon, your job is to make this 12-ton wall fly away as if it's one of our other CG pieces.
I left set and it was just with a bunch of holes in it. But then the next day I came back and half the wall was teared off. So that was pretty whoa.
We'll take it as far as we can, but obviously without Joe's help, what we're doing, it couldn't be done.
My power is pixels, and his power is pulleys and mortars and all kinds of things. Jon is everything that's great about old school filmmaking, and he's everything that's great about new school filmmaking. There aren't too many people who have a foot in both the past and the present and bring what's best of the past into the present and then improve on it. Jon is, at heart, the kid who used to love blowing things up when he was 10.
Won't be a dry eye in the house.
He hasn't lost an ounce of that, and if he can blow something up, it's a good day. I think there's nothing that takes you out of a fantasy film faster than not believing what you're seeing. That if you can suspend disbelief in a fantasy film, there's really nothing like it. And one of the ways to ensure that is to do as many things practically as possible, because then there's less of a chance that the audience will be thrown out of the film by not believing what they're seeing.
Ready, and action!
Cut.
Jon's a man with a vision. My part of that is trying to spend enough time with Jon to try to imagine what he's got in his mind's eye. It's a difficult thing. I mean, it's not difficult to get the information out of him. What's difficult is giving him his dream.
Come on, Jon, get it off.
You know, he's got a very specific imagination. He raises the bar. I'm not going to give him less than what exactly he had in mind. He's not going to accept anything less than what he had in his mind.
It's okay. The odds were...
JB? And Bill, yeah, thank you. Wow.